to Daniel Jones from the Giants. Daniel, is that you? Beat the Chiefs. Show me. If the Broncos and Russell Wilson can show me that they can beat the Chiefs, then I will start believing.
The crowd up. And so are this defense, and Kansas City won't snap the ball again. The Denver Broncos have beaten the Kansas City Chiefs.
David Montgomery on the Lions. Former Bear, gonna make this his revenge game for sure. David Montgomery gets the touchdown that ices the game. No! And there's a flag. There's flags. There's flags. There's flags. There's flags. Snap. Hold. Kick.
Denver wins! Denver wins! Let's go!
They open. No!
What happened?
America is football. Football is America.
Football is America. If you don't like it, you can kiss your candy ass.
For the moment in time, I don't give a damn.
Oh my God!
No!
You loved it.
It's 30 to 27. Chiefs win. Chiefs win 30 to 20.
Woo! Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the Only Football Podcast. My name is Kyle, as you can see there at the bottom, and this is the greatest football podcast on YouTube. Thanks to you guys for making it a home for anybody wandering around looking for a place to talk football and just kind of cut loose for a little bit. I say that because you guys know I go to the gym. Well, you don't, but some of you do. I go to the gym every day. It's a big part of my life. And besides the weekends, I do believe in balance. But after my accident in the Navy, I didn't know if I was going to be able to go to the gym and do things like that. And now I'm able to do so much more than I could have ever imagined because I have put myself in a program. It's called Burn Boot Camp. And I have trainers right beside me giving me workouts, the type of workouts where generally if I was at the gym by myself, I would say I can't do that. And they go, okay, well, we can make an accommodation. So you're at least strengthening that muscle. Anyway, the trainers at this place are top tier, and they're the real reason for the transformation that I've been having in my physical body. I've been bigger before physically, but I've never felt better. And I say all that because my trainer subscribed to our podcast today. His name is Josh. And Josh, if you see this video later, welcome to the Only Football family. And maybe we'll even go to a Titans game together later this year. But happy to invite him in and get our 650th subscriber. We were stuck at 649 for quite a bit, and we are over the hump. Now we got 50 more to go to 700. The news has been pretty crazy lately. I mean, you got Brandon Ayuk wanting the trade. The way the media has been talking about that story ad nauseum makes you think that there's really not much else going on. But that's not really true because, of course, preseason started. We've gotten our first look at Drake May, even though it was such a short sample that the Patriot fans actually booed Bailey Zappi when he went into the game. And it wasn't because they don't like Bailey Zappi. It's because they wanted more Drake May. And I kind of understand their point. It's like it's the preseason. You have pretty much made it clear that he's not the week one starter. What do you have to lose? Honestly, why not just let Drake May play the whole game? The injury thing is more of a concern with a guy like Aaron Rodgers or Mahomes or Lamar. Drake May is not projected to be the starter week one. So why does he get treated like the starting quarterback and only play, 2 series and come out of the game? I don't know. But we got our first look at Drake May. We're going to get our first look at Caleb Williams tomorrow. Sunday, we're going to get our first look at Bo Nix. There's a lot of stuff going on. In the middle of all of that, we have Nick Foles announce his retirement yesterday. We have Juju Smith just cut from the Steelers. I mean, it was shocking. I mean, by the Patriots, excuse me. I was shocked when I saw that because we all know that the Patriots don't necessarily have the most weapons, right? It's almost like you got a lot of guys that you're hoping work out. But I kind of understand the move in this sense. Juju Smith has not really panned out with the teams that he's been to since winning the Super Bowl with the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, you bring in a brand new head coach who is trying to establish a culture. And somebody like Juju Smith, who's played with the Chiefs, he's been on a Super Bowl winning team, it could be a good thing. But the moment it's not, you got too many young people for a guy like Juju Smith to lead them astray. Like I said, there were players that the Patriots drafted this year that I really believe in. And the one I believed in most wasn't Jalen Polk out of Washington. It wasn't. I like Jalen Polk, but I am very high on Javon Baker. And I like this young group of people they got KJ Osborne as well. So there are young, talented, up-and-coming people. And I think it's fair to say, look, if you got Javon Baker and Jalen Polk playing at even the same level of somebody like Juju Smith, why not just cut him out? I do think that if Juju Smith would have brought value to the team, that this wouldn't have happened, which is a pretty thing to say, a John Madden thing to say, if you will. But Juju Smith hasn't been able to surpass 1,000 yards in a season in quite some time. Ian Rappaport noted on Friday that the release allows him to sign with other teams before the 53-man rosters are finalized. So it does feel in a way like they did him a favor by releasing him at this point just after his first preseason game. Mind you, his first preseason game, he didn't have a single catch, no yards, nothing. And then he gets cut. So he's only 27. He started off his career pretty strong. Like I said, 2,343 yards and 14 touchdowns through his first 2 seasons. But he hasn't been able to surpass 1,000 yards in a season over the next 5 years. And as the Patriots prepare for Drake May eventually to come in and take over as the starting quarterback, Smith will not be joining that group of people. And I think this is very simple. And this is the same thing that happened with Brandon Ayuk, where Brandon Ayuk was like, I don't want to play for the Patriots. I'm interested in the Steelers. And it's like, really? What makes the Steelers so much different than the Patriots? Seriously. Is there a star quarterback in New England? No. Is there a star quarterback in Pittsburgh? There isn't. Are there amazing weapons on the offense? No. Neither is the situation you have in New England. So I don't understand what the big difference was, but when they asked the Patriots head coach about it, not Brian Flores, blanking on his name, not gonna do that right now. When they asked him about this trade, because of course the media was going to ask him about it, he was like, we like the guys that are in the building. I'm building a culture. And I remember this analogy I can give you very simply is when I wanted to become a flight attendant, I actually went and interviewed for the position. And when I didn't know if I was going to make it, there was over 1,000 people there. They were only hiring 21. And they brought me back for a second interview. The first interview was a group interview. And I was like, man, I don't even have an opportunity to really be special or try to charm them. You got like 10 seconds each. So the fact that they called me back in, I was shocked. The second interview, I go in there and I'm talking to them, and basically I have my pursuit of happiness Will Smith moment where my eyes are watering and I'm just like, if you give me this opportunity, I promise it'll be the best decision you ever made, et cetera, et cetera. At the time in my life, this was the most important thing that I potentially could have accomplished. And they said, we can't offer you the position, but we can offer you an opportunity to go to our training. Upon the training, if you graduate, you will be a flight attendant. You'll get your wings. Now, I thought that the fact that I wasn't a flight attendant was a really bad thing. You're trying to join an airline. You have no experience. And a lot of jobs are like that. I mean, try getting a sports anchor position without any experience. You're not going to get the job. I was a little surprised that they actually hired me, or at least gave me a chance to be hired with absolutely zero experience. And then they said something that I'll never forget. They said, "We like that you don't have any experience." They said, because if you had experience, you would have been bringing your bad habits from other airlines to here. We like that you don't know anything. We can build you up the way we want you at Eastern Airlines. There's so many employees that come from Spirit or come from Frontier, and hey, this is the way we did it over there. Well, now you got to kind of take those habits, try to get them out of their system. It's a much harder process than just showing somebody from the beginning the way to go. So I do think in any new head coach taking over a team, that there is something to be said for wanting to establish a culture with a very young team, especially the wide receiver core is extremely young. And I think that's all this decision is. It's like, we like that there is no expectations. We like that there's no superstars. We're going to build our culture, right? Post Bill Belichick, what's it going to look like? It's been decades since somebody has had to come into this. And then how do you build a culture? I mean, it's impossible to fill the shoes that Bill Belichick left. It is impossible, almost, right? But he has to do something. So what is it going to be? Is he going to be a good coach? Is he going to, and what is his culture? Because he played for Bill Belichick. He coached with Bill Belichick. So it's like, how do you, it would be like if Eastern Airlines trained me, everything I know is policy of Eastern Airlines, and then they make me the director, and now I have to try to make it my own thing. It's like, well, how do you do that? How does Brian, I can't believe I keep blanking on his name. Hold on. I'm not doing this anymore. How does somebody that, Gerard Mayo, how does somebody that was with Bill Belichick through all of these years build his own brand of what the Patriots are going to be? And there's going to be things that we see that are going to resemble Bill Belichick. Just like when they asked him about the trade and he shut it down. He's like, I don't talk about players that aren't on the team, period. That was such a Bill Belichick answer. But at the same time, Gerard Mayo does have a job to build a new culture for a team that hasn't had a winning season in multiple years. This is something that I think every decision that is made, the ones that are like this, Juju Smith being released, he doesn't fit the culture. He doesn't fit the culture that he is trying to implement on the team. And it's probably a combination of that mixed with Javon Baker and Jalen Polk are looking very promising. We got the Hurricane in the chat. He said Juju was always a good number 2 guy, but never the guy. And, you make a good point. He has been a good number 2 guy, but for whatever reason, it's kind of like the Brandon Cooks thing. It's like Brandon Cooks plays with Drew Brees. He played with Matthew Stafford. He played with another Hall of Fame quarterback I'm blanking on. He plays with all these Hall of Fame quarterbacks, but why doesn't he stay on any of the teams? Right? It's like at some point, there might be a problem with this guy. So I don't know enough about Juju Smith. I could be thinking of another Steeler, right? The Steelers have a history of just over the top, just spoiled brat wide receivers that are obnoxious. So I don't want to group him in, but if my memory serves me correct, there has been times where he's been in the news and the headlines for the wrong thing. Gerard Mayo might be just because this seems so abrupt. So I don't know if there was a conflict at practice, or there was just that moment that's like, no, what I'm trying to build here, I can't have that. I can't have that in my locker room, whatever that is. All right. I need hungry young players. And he makes the move. So what happens to Juju Smith now? Well, there's multiple teams that are going to be interested in him. Like I said, the way that they released him gives him an opportunity to join the 52-man roster before the season starts. So I I'm not really sure which teams are going to be in line, but we know that there are a group of teams that need wide receivers right now. What is the market going to be for him? I'm not sure. The Patriots, the reason I think it was a culture thing is because they had to eat, I think, $5 million in dead cap money. Let me pull up the exact number here. They had to eat, where is it? Juju Smith. Here it is. Patriots released Juju Smith after 1 year. Okay. Signed with the club, 3-year, $33 million. He burst onto the scene. Greatest triumph came in 2022. Okay, as for New England, it will take on $9.6 million in dead money this year, which includes eating the wideout's $7 million guarantee. I find that fascinating, right? And I find it revealing is a better word, because the Patriots, to be considered a team that doesn't have a deep wide receiver room and eat all that money, there is something going on behind the scenes. And don't expect Gerard Mayo to tell you what it is. Bill Belichick is his mentor. When did Bill Belichick ever give you information about his decisions involving personnel and players? Never. So whatever. I'm going to read between the lines. I don't know for a fact what happened, but I do think that there was some kind of conflict, some kind of power struggle, something happened. So teams that need a wide receiver right now, I can think of a couple. And maybe Juju Smith doesn't join a team that needs a wide receiver. Maybe he joins a team that already has two good ones and he can be a number 3. Because like you said, he's always been a number 2 guy. But maybe it's time for him to transition to a number 3 role. Now, Buffalo Bills are probably the biggest people that jump off the page to me. They got Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakur, but Gabriel Davis is gone. Stephon Diggs is gone. They're going to run a 2 tight end set. And Dalton Kincaid and Knox are going to have big years. But imagine Buffalo Bills getting their hand on Juju Smith. I think that could be huge for the program. Okay, the Pittsburgh Steelers are the other team. They happen to be trying to get Brandon Ayuk, but maybe if they can't come to a deal or they don't want to cough up a second-round pick, Juju Smith would go to a place like that. They say the Denver Broncos need a wide receiver. The Broncos don't and wouldn't do that. They just wouldn't. They have Tim Patrick. They have Cortland Sutton. They have Marvin Mims, who made the Pro Bowl as a rookie. They want to get him more involved. They drafted Bo Nix's Troy Franklin, number 1 receiver in Oregon. Like they're not going to do it. I could see maybe the Chargers doing it, but like I said, strong head coach in Jim Harbaugh. Is that going to be an issue? Now I could see him going to Buffalo Bills because look, Stephon Diggs had a ton of extracurricular kind of nonsense going on, including after losing the playoffs, not even staying in the locker room, just driving off the facility before the coach could even talk to him. So I think Buffalo, I mean, Sean McDermott has kind of shown that he'll deal with some tough personalities. So as long as they bring value to the team, I could see the Buffalo Bills being the team that makes this move for him. I could also see a team like the Giants or the Cardinals, or I would say maybe the Bengals, but I don't think so. But yeah, I would sum it up to the Cardinals, the Giants, the Chargers, the Steelers, and the Bills. And I'll make the Bills the favorite at this point in the season. And KC says, I bet the Chiefs would take him back. And he said he does know the Chiefs offense, which is a very strong point. He does. And with all the stuff going on with Rice, they might need a wide receiver. So it could be a reunion. Who knows what's going to happen? But the Patriots, as of now, have moved on from Juju Smith-Schuster and Jalen Polk and Javon Baker. Remember his name. Javon Baker is going to break out this year. That was a steal of a draft pick. These are the guys that are going to be elevated. Plus, they have other veterans like Kendrick Bourne, Jalen Reagor, and KJ Osborne coming from Minnesota. So the move, shocking as it was, I mean, we'll all be over it by tomorrow. Okay, as I named this entire podcast episode, I wanted to go over which new head coach is most likely to win the division in 2024, because we see a lot of new head coaches on a yearly basis, but this one was a little different because there was kind of like legendary-ish, not quite legendary. Some of them were, but there were some really good head coaches fired today. I was talking to my trainer about Mike Vrabel, and he was like, I had no idea that was going to happen. I was shocked. And I was like, I was too. Pete Carroll, Bill Belichick. Guys, these guys all didn't even get a job this cycle. And it does feel like there's a new wave of young, up-and-coming head coaches coming. Not to even mention next year, Ben Johnson. There's some good options out there. Last year at this time, DeMeco Ryans was a rookie head coach, and the expectations for the Texans were that they would win 3 football games the entire season. CJ Stroud was kind of considered in the same light as Drake May. Young, he's pretty good, right? But Bryce Young is better. I mean, couldn't have been more wrong about that. And I'm not pointing fingers. The quarterback position is definitely the hardest to evaluate. Just ask Brock Purdy. But still, DeMeco Ryans was a home run pick. Now, consider that in 6 of the past 7 years, 2021 being the exception, at least one coach has won the division in their first year. I find this fascinating. So history tells us that this year, a new head coach is going to win the division. Now, in 2023, it was DeMeco Ryans. In 2022, there were 2 coaches that did it, Todd Bowles and Kevin O'Connell. 3, and Doug Peterson. In 2020, Ron Rivera did it. In 2019, it was Matt LaFleur. In 2018, it was Matt Nagy. And in 2017, it was Sean McVay and Doug Marrone. This offseason, 8 teams hired new head coaches. So which one is more likely to follow in Ryan's footsteps and claim a division title right off the bat? Well, first off, go through this list. Jacksonville in 2022 with Doug Peterson, Trevor Lawrence. You got 2022 Todd Bowles and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but keep in mind, the Buccaneers were, I think they won that division with 9 wins or 8 wins. I think 8. Not a great season. Kevin O'Connell had Kirk Cousins. DeMeco Ryans had CJ Stroud. Matt LaFleur had Aaron Rodgers. Matt Nagy in 2018 is kind of weird, right? Because it was like Mitchell Trubisky didn't really pan out. So I would say that one stands out. Buffalo Bills with Doug Marrone, and then Sean McVay with the Rams. I mean, a lot of these guys were just in great situations. So this year, Raheem Morris, Dan Quinn, Mike McDonald, Jim Harbaugh, Antonio Pierce, Brian Callahan, Gerard Mayo, and Dave Canales are all brand new head coaches. So which one do I think is the most likely to win their division? Well, I'm going to go with Raheem Morris. And coincidentally, it's the coach that I actually have the least amount of faith in long term. I just like the situation he's in. Last season, the 7-10 Falcons were a quarterback away from winning this division, and now they add Kirk Cousins. So I like this team. I like the offense. I like Darnell Mooney addition, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Bijan Robinson. They are in somewhat of a weak division. Now, I got Tampa winning this division because I liked what I saw late in the year from Baker, and they were able to keep that core together. So I'm still going with Tampa Bay, but if I had to rank these head coaches, I would not be shocked if Atlanta wins their division this year. So I love this situation. I think if Morris and their new coordinator, Jimmy Lake, can add some spice to the defense, Atlanta could really win double-digit games and open this division just wide open. So I got number 1, Raheem Morris. Now, I'm going to go with my number 2 is going to be very controversial. It's going to be Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh, I think, is the second most likely coach to win the division. Why? Well, first off, everywhere Jim Harbaugh, and by the way, as you can see, I'm not a fan of this. I'm just giving you my opinion. Jim Harbaugh is successful everywhere he goes. He is a blue chip head coach. He changes programs around. He's the first coach to ever win a national championship and then leave. He took the Niners from irrelevancy to NFC championship, NFC championships on a yearly basis. He was amazing in Stanford. Like he's just a rebuilding specialist. He goes to programs that are dysfunctional and he turns them around, and he doesn't do it in 3 years. He does it in 1. He is, I mean, I could understand saying like, oh, well, that's a little weird because there's Patrick Mahomes in the division. I understand that the Chiefs played very well late in the year, but let's not forget that was not the Chiefs' best season. Last year, it was like they were just barely holding themselves together. They were having meltdowns on the field. Kadarius Toney's offsides. Patrick Mahomes is screaming and, complaining in press conferences about refs. The season was not all that it looks like when you win a Super Bowl. But we forget about all that when you win a Super Bowl. But I'm here to remind you all that the Chiefs kind of had an underwhelming season and Mahomes' worst season offensively. And it was the defense that carried that team into the postseason and then eventually to a Super Bowl victory. But Jim Harbaugh with the Chargers and the fact that Justin Herbert threw over 5,000 yards as a rookie, he broke records. They beef up the offensive line. I know that there are certain question marks that we can't answer right now, but I put my faith in Jim Harbaugh to just schematically figure out a way to win through physicality, toughness, and discipline. These are the things that he does. He's going to set a standard. The culture is going to be different. There's no more chargering. That went away when he was hired. I think their running game is going to be underrated. They don't have to worry about their left or right tackle for a decade. That's what happened when they drafted Joe Alt, opposite side of Rashawn Slater. You have, if this was any other team, we would say, yeah, it's a no-brainer. What's the common theme in the NFL? If you get the quarterback right and you get the head coach right, you can win a Super Bowl. That's the game. That's the NFL game, right? Get the quarterback and the coach right. Justin Herbert was injured last year, so it's like the NFL top 100. They put Lamar Jackson over Mahomes. People get so scope locked on what we just saw that they forget a much larger sample size. Justin Herbert has proven that when he's playing his best football, he's top 5 in the NFL. As much as I hate to say it, it's true. You have the quarterback right. You have the coach right. The fact of the matter is, with that those two combinations, anything can happen, including winning the AFC West in his first year. As much as Kansas City fans might hate that I'm saying that, Harbaugh and his throwback approach, I think it's going to work. And I think Justin Herbert the one caveat is he needs to shake that plantar fascia injury. And a lot of doctors say that can linger out through the year. But if he can stay healthy, I like their chances. And I think week 4, the Chargers play the Chiefs. And I think that could be for first place in the division as early as week 4. We have some comments in the chat. And the Hurricane said more likely an NFC South team. It's usually a fairly close division. I completely agree. How late am I? I'm at Red Car having a beer. Cheers, Bill. I'll cheers you with my water right now. I'll have a beer a little bit later. You're not that late, about 25 minutes late probably. But I'm going through the coaches, first-year head coaches that I think have the best chance to win the division. Raheem Morris, number 1. I'm going with Jim Harbaugh at number 2. Now, at number 3, I'm going with Dan Quinn. Why? I've been saying it all off season. Jaden Daniels is the best quarterback in this year's draft. I think Jaden Daniels is going to be special. I think he's the type of player that could win an MVP. I still need to see something, right? But I was not surprised when the reports started coming out of camp that Jaden Daniels is looking really good. Dan Quinn, we know, I mean, he's a proven head coach, proven. I understand Kyle Shanahan was the offensive coordinator, but Dan Quinn did take the Falcons to a Super Bowl, which is something that defensive coaches are doing less and less as the years go on and the league transitions into an offensive first league. But Dan Quinn has proven that he can overcome that. They got Bobby Wagner, Dante Fowler, Dorrance Armstrong, who all actually played for Quinn in previous places. So there's going to be continuity there. Terry McLaurin might be the most underrated receiver in the NFL, consistently puts out 1,000-yard season after 1,000-yard season. I don't think he's ever not had 1,000-yard season, and he's never had the same starting quarterback week 1 of any year. I saw something today that was like for the last, I think it was 10 seasons in a row or 7 maybe. I would have to look it up. 7 to 10 seasons in a row, the Commanders have started a different quarterback week 1. So that should tell you everything you need to know about Terry McLaurin. Austin Eckler, I mean, he still has enough in the tank, I think. I like Brian Robinson. Jonathan Allen, that they add a good defensive tackle. Jaden Daniels comes out and he is actually better than we expect, or somewhat similar to like maybe RG3, who happened to be at the time a Redskin. This team could work right away under Dan Quinn's leadership. Keep in mind, Dan Quinn has always been a player's coach. Players love playing for him, right? I mean, there's just coaches like that. Mike Vrabel came off that way to me. Dan Campbell is that way. I think Dan Quinn is going to be a good head coach. I think he could have been a head coach 2 years ago, but he wanted to stay with the Cowboys and try to get a Super Bowl. They never got it done, but it wasn't Dan Quinn's fault. So I really like Dan Quinn as a head coach. I could see how some people might be skeptical after blowing the Super Bowl lead, but I kind of refuse to let that one moment define a much larger sample size of Dan Quinn and the success he has pretty much everywhere he goes. I'm also just extremely high on Jaden Daniels. So I rank Dan Quinn and the Commanders number 3. And I can't really talk about that without saying that the Eagles and the Cowboys are in this division, and the Cowboys have won 12 games in, I think, 3 straight seasons. But I am expecting the Cowboys to struggle a little bit this year. They lose Michael Gallup. They're going to be asking an awful lot out of CeeDee Lamb, who reports are coming out that they're closing in on a crazy deal right now. They said, I think it was between $128 and $126 million. It's a big contract, but Dak Prescott doesn't have one. So he's playing for a contract. Is that going to help him or hurt him? I don't know. But if the Cowboys, let's say, win 9 games this year, I think the Commanders can win 10. And like we saw last year, I'm not predicting that the Commanders win the division. I'm just saying if I had to rank these teams, I like him, say, over the Panthers, So, yeah, I mean, the Eagles, a new offensive coordinator, a new defensive coordinator, a new defensive back room. I mean, they drafted Cooper DeJean. They drafted extremely well. I got the Eagles winning the division, but if for some reason the Eagles don't get off on the right foot, I could see the Commanders being a surprise team this year in the NFL. And Bill says, I'm not drinking while I'm driving. Good. For some reason, the way that reads, I have some doubts. But okay, so we got Jim Harbaugh out of the way. We got Dan Quinn out of the way. Now, let me entertain this one for a second. Mike McDonald for the Seattle Seahawks. Okay, apparently he's a defensive wizard, so good that I'm a little down on the Ravens this year. He takes over a Seattle squad that's got enough talent to take this division. They got a pretty dynamic offense. Now, the question is always going to be about the quarterback position in Geno Smith, but They got JSN, who I think is going to break out this year. They got DK Metcalf, who's a stud, and Tyler Lockett's very, very consistent as a number 2. They also have Leonard Williams. They draft Devin Witherspoon. The Russell Wilson trade, I mean, it worked out so well for them. But you've been seeing that the Seahawks have been drafting very well the last couple of years. This is the kind of year where it all comes together, right? You got a lot of players that were rookies. Now they're second-year players. They've been playing together. I think the Seahawks have the talent. I like their running back, Kenneth Walker. I think he could have a huge season. Like his rookie season, he was amazing. Dealt with injuries last year, but the Seahawks, when Geno was in his first year, the Seahawks were pretty damn good. I remember I think it was week 3 against the Lions. It was like 45-48. I mean, they had no problem scoring points. I expect their defense to be better. Now, San Francisco in the division, this is the thing. I get that San Francisco is a lot of people's Super Bowl favorite, but I will say the vibes are not right in San Francisco, and it's as simple as that. I was a San Francisco bandwagon last year, right? And I mean that in the sense where I picked them to win the Super Bowl. I had no doubts in it. You could have asked me in the preseason. You could have asked me in the offseason, week 1, week 10, the playoffs. It didn't matter. I was taking the 49ers to win it all. This year, it's different. First off, Trent Williams missed 3 games last year. The 49ers lost all 3 of them. Second off, Christian McCaffrey is dealing with injuries, and you knock on wood wherever you can find it, but Christian McCaffrey has had injury concerns throughout his career. He has been relatively healthy the last couple years. Statistically, I don't like the odds that I hate to say he's due for one, but you can kind of see what I'm saying. Like when somebody gets injured pretty frequently and they're healthy, you start to worry a little bit. And then I say that, and then all of a sudden he gets an injury that's not considered long-term. It was a calf strain, I believe. Okay, whatever. That's not the end of the world. Brandon Ayuk, is he even going to be on the team? Right now, all this stuff can happen to any team, but you want it to happen in April, in June. We're in August. We are literally a month away from less than a month away from the season kicking off. And the 49ers have some serious things that they need to work out. So that's kind of the reason I'm taking Mike McDonald. Also, these other coaches just have a really uphill battle, and I think the Seahawks at least have a talented team around them. If they can play just nasty defensively, I think their offense can muster 21 to 24 points per game, and we'll see if the 49ers can get their shit together before the season starts. Will the Commanders are changing their name again? And then Bill said, I would bet on it. Oops, will the Command? I knew what you meant. I think, I don't know. I mean, you don't want to change it too much, but it's like getting to the type of year where it's like, you either got to do it now or don't do it for a long time, because you don't want people getting used to it and then it goes away again. And then we have to go back through that awkward stage like Bronco fans feel about our uniforms right now. I mean, it's like once it starts growing on you and it rolls off the tongue, you don't want to switch it up. But I mean, new ownership, it's totally possible. And Bill said, we got the gist of it. So, okay, that was my number 4. Okay. My number 5, I struggled a lot because I almost put this at number 4. And the reason I couldn't is because I got the Houston Texans going to the Super Bowl, but it's Brian Callahan. And I do think that the Tennessee Titans are going to be a surprise team this year. Last season, Tennessee registered double-digit losses for the second consecutive year. Look at all of the weapons, though, that they added. Will Levis had a totally just disaster of an offensive line. It was totally just a shit show. But he did throw 4 touchdown passes in his debut and beat the Dolphins, who were a pretty good team at that point in the year, or they were all year, to be fair. And now they bring in Bryce Callahan, who is responsible for coaching Joe Burrow. And they bring in weapons like Calvin Ridley and the running back they bring in from Dallas, Tony Pollard. And They still have Traylon Burks over there, and they're hoping that he works out. But it's like Tennessee has just been plucking all these pieces. All right, we're taking Calvin Ridley. We're getting this guy. We're getting this guy. How about we get the cornerback from Kansas City? Blanking on his name right now. But they pay him, a huge contract. One of the best corners in the league last year. Hold on. Let me see. Tennessee cornerback trade. L'Jarius Sneed. I can't believe I forgot that. But anyway, Tennessee has been just quietly putting together a really good team. Now, in the chance that Brian Callahan is actually a really good coach, this is exactly what the Texans were last year. They had these pieces, I would say even less pieces, and they were projected to win 3, 4, 5 games. I mean, nobody thought the Texans could have been a good team. No one feels that way about this AFC South team or this first-year head coach. But if it works out, I could see this working out fast. I do think, at a minimum, I don't think they win the division, but I do think that Tennessee is going to be a feisty team, and I don't think they're going to win less than 6 games. I think they're going to give a lot of teams a shot. I think that's their floor, is about 7 wins, and I think their ceiling's all the way up to 10. Call me crazy. I like all of the moves that they're making in Tennessee. I like all the personnel decisions. Titans are doing something and no one's paying attention to it. Bill said, I don't know if you watched last night, Kyle, but your guy Drew got hurt and will be out a few weeks. Not bad, but not good. Yeah, I did see that. I'm hoping that he can. I still have faith in Drew Lock, so I'm hoping he can get healthy and get out there. I think Daniel Jones is probably like, oh, I got a little bit of breathing room here. But Drew Lock is pretty good. Wait till you see him throw a football. He's one of those guys that throws such a good ball. He's got such a good arm. If he could just be better at reading defenses and better at decision making, he could be so good. The talent is there. So I've always been kind of just waiting patiently for it to click for him, because I think he can be special if that happens. Okay, at number 7, we have, or no, not number 7, number 6, Antonio Pierce. The reason I put Antonio Pierce here is because the next 2 are almost impossible. And I think Antonio Pierce winning the division is almost impossible. This is a division with Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew starting. So I will say the vibes around Las Vegas totally changed the moment that Antonio Pierce got this job. I mean, this team had nothing to fight for. They were just out. They were bad. Josh McDaniels just destroyed the culture, just like he does everywhere he goes. He is an absolute nightmare of a coach. And nothing was different about that with the Raiders. Antonio Pierce is the interim head coach, and all of a sudden the Raiders were having fun, and they were playing good, and they were winning games. And they were just a totally different team. Like, how can the same team be so different so fast? You got to give Antonio Pierce his credit for turning a team around that had nothing to play for. Okay. Now the quarterback thing, it is worrisome. And then the Chargers and the Chiefs, of course, the Broncos are going to be really good this year, but you got to give Antonio Pierce his credit. He deserves to be the head coach of this team. And if it is Gardner Minshew, we saw Gardner Minshew, one play away from the playoffs last year. Gardner Minshew is the kind of quarterback that will put you in the playoff conversation. I just don't think it's enough to win the division, but he ranks above my last 2, and you'll know why in a second. At number 7, I have Gerard Mayo. Okay. So I mentioned Gerard Mayo earlier because Juju Smith was released, but this is a really tough job for him. I do think he might be the perfect person for this job. He's a first-time head coach. He is going to have the defense right, but what is the offense going to look like? Drake May is a project. We know Jacoby Brissett does not bring you playoff upside. So that just is a weird situation. A lot of young receivers. There's just a lot of things that need to be worked out with this team. I'm not saying it's not going to work out. I'm saying it's not going to work out this year. I think the Patriots will play competitive because that's the Patriots, man. You could say what you want about them, but the Patriots are a week in, week out tough opponent, even when they win 4 or 5 games. Right. The Broncos were playing for the Super Bowl on Christmas Day. I mean, the Super Bowl. God, I wish. They were playing for the playoffs on Super Bowl. All they had to do is beat the Patriots at home, and they couldn't do it because the Patriots are that kind of a team. The Patriots are going to play hard. It's the Patriot way. The Patriot way is, although Belichick's gone, the Patriot way isn't. And that's why I think Gerard Mayo got this job, is because he was going to be able to kind of continue the legacy of Bill Belichick, but also putting his own twist on it. So I do think he needs to push all of the right buttons for this team to compete for the top of the AFC East. I don't think it's going to happen, but that's why he's this low on the list. And then last on the list is Dave Canales. Dave Canales. And this is no secret to anybody that watches this show. I don't believe in Bryce Young. I don't think he bounced back from his disappointing rookie season. I think Canales is a fine addition. I mean, I just don't know if the Panthers are going to be able to win more games with Bryce Young. I hate to say that. Bryce Young has... Clearly, there's a reason he was drafted number 1 overall. But the problem with the type of season he had last year is that you also need him now to regain his swagger that has got to be lost, right? I mean, you get all these people saying he's short, small. I saw on the Pat McAfee show, they brought in somebody, a reporter from the Panthers, and they were joking. They're like, I saw a picture of him with a backpack on, and he looks smaller than I've ever seen. Is he shrinking? And everyone laughs. Like, this is a serious issue. I mean, Bryce Young is legitimately smaller than any quarterback I've ever seen. Now, I guess the height and stuff might measure out to some people, but my eyeball test tells me Bryce Young is the smallest quarterback I've ever seen. I just don't know if he's going to be able to make that step. Like, not this year, ever. I really don't. I think very few people following the Panthers are expecting a quick turnaround this year. There's also issues going on with the owner. You're getting reports now that, what is it? Not Shane Steichen. Who is Frank Reich? You heard Frank Reich come out and say that, the ownership, David Tepper, that he was trying to be too hands-on and he was kind of micromanaging him. And it's just like, he's already kind of proven that he's that type of owner. Now, they did say this year he's kind of taken a step back. He's kind of, okay, he's hearing people. We don't like to be, we don't like you watching over every decision we make. I need some freedoms as the coach. But I just think until the Panthers show me something, I think that they have another disappointing season. Now, I could be wrong. Dave Canales could be, a guy that revives this franchise and helps Young find his way in year 2, but I'm not betting any of my money on it. And that's why Dave Canales ends here at number 8. So that is the order of the first-year head coaches that I think could win the division. There was a story, we've been talking about Ayuk. The Niners are making a renewed push to get a long-term extension done. This is significant news for the 49ers. Now, I don't know if I'm a fan of the 49ers, I'm like, I don't know if I want to pay him Tyreek Hill money. I don't know if he deserves CeeDee Lamb money. I mean, he's really good, but he's not that good. He's not like one of those guys. So I don't know if they're going to be able to get a middle ground done, a middle ground kind of figured out here. But Brock Purdy needs to get paid. They just paid CMC. Trent Williams is trying to get a contract. It depends what they're going to give him. If you're a 49ers fan and they pay him, the type of money those other wide receivers make, I don't know if you love that. I don't know if you love that. Maybe you do. But The 26-year-old long has been desiring a new deal, and he has demanded that one comes or he's not going to be participating in any of the organized team activities. As of now, he's doing the hold-in. Now, this is kind of a shift from 4 days ago when the winds were moving more in the way of a trade, and that's what we talked about with the Steelers and Patriots. Now, that could mean that Ayuk gets the deal he wants with the team that he wants, and one can bet that he probably does want to stay with the 49ers. Now, there are people that say Patrick Mahomes being the 10th highest paid quarterback is criminal. Okay, listen. Being the highest paid position isn't always what's most important. Patrick Mahomes is paid extremely well. And you know what also pays you extremely well? Winning Super Bowls. It opens up opportunities to be in advertising. It opens up opportunities to be in sponsorships. These are the things that, like Drew Brees, he did it, right? He got his bag in the beginning. He won the Super Bowl with the Saints, and then he got his bag, and then they never made it back. And then he started taking team-friendly deals. So you would go to New England to take a bag of cash, and you would leave California, leave a team that is going to take you to the Super Bowl. It just doesn't seem like a smart business decision. It's not all about... Well, it is all about money, but what I'm trying to say is that you can make more money by keeping yourself relevant. How many times have we seen guys like Albert Hainsworth get crazy amount of money and disappear from the face of the earth? Playing on a team like the 49ers will keep you relevant. It'll keep your market up. It'll keep you in advertising and commercials and media opportunities. They're going to want to interview you. That stuff matters. So I do think that Ayuk needs to find a middle ground here with the 49ers. Now, with Ayuk, the 49ers offense is insane. Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel. And just in the past week, we heard Ricky Pearsall, the rookie that they drafted, he hurt his shoulder. So we'll see what happens with that. CMC strained a calf. And Deebo Samuel said it was weird being on the field without him. This is what I mean about the vibes aren't right. So to me, it does seem kind of important that they get all this stuff fixed up, and that includes getting Brandon Ayuk back on the field. So nothing right now is set in stone, not a trade or guarantee that the 49ers are going to pay him, but the Niners are making moves to try to bridge the gap between Ayuk for the foreseeable future. And if they can get that done, they can focus on bridging the gap that has been keeping them from a Lombardi trophy for the past couple years. But there seems to be a lot of things working out. But this is the kind of story that you just wonder what's real and what's not. There's so many reporters that will put a story like this out there. There's coaches that can make a call and be like, hey, I want you to put out a story that we're trying to get a deal done. And it's done, right? Bobby Kownak, a digital content producer for NFL, he's like, sure, I'll do it. It's not false. We are trying to get a deal done. But when you read an article like this, it has a very different temperature than what we saw with the trade stuff 2 days ago. So, until something happens, I don't know what's going to happen with this situation. I do think the 49ers want him, but I do think Brandon Ayuk might be asking for too much. And that goes along with the 49ers. They said they wanted a second-round draft pick. I don't know if anybody wants to give up a second-round draft pick and all of that money for Brandon Ayuk. So we'll see what happens, but it is a totally different story just 2 days later from what we talked about a couple days ago. Kirk Cousins says he'll be ready to go week 1 versus Steelers, which is what me and Rick talked about a couple weeks. It was probably a month ago now. I said, right after they drafted Michael Penix, I was like, what if Kirk Cousins can't play week 1 and Michael Penix goes out there and he's amazing right away? And now Kirk Cousins, the news is out that he isn't expected to play in the preseason, but he will be ready to go for the regular season. Cousins said that on Friday during the Atlanta Falcons-Dolphins preseason game, roughly 9 months after tearing his Achilles. His exact words, I'll be ready to go week 1. I've been going full speed for all of camp, just getting better every week. So it's not totally surprising for Falcon fans because Cousins has been practicing in full. But hearing his confidence that he will be ready to go week 1 when the Falcons play the Steelers on September 8th is good news for an Atlanta team that's trying to take a division. And I mean, he signed a 4-year, $180 million contract. The expectations are a Super Bowl. You just don't pay somebody that much money unless you think that they can get you to the big game. So it's going to be funny because, or not funny, but interesting because there's been no preseason action for Cousins. There's none on the agenda. The first time we're going to see him as the Falcons quarterback is going to be in a game that's really important week 1. And that's his first time back from a significant injury as well. So, I mean, week 1 is going to be a freaking blast, but no more speculation about Penix or Penix is the backup. Kirk Cousins starts week 1. Now, there was a trade. The Cowboys sent Nahshon Wright to the Vikings in exchange for Andrew Booth. Honestly, don't know who any of those guys are, but they are both cornerbacks, so they made a cornerback swap. That was the second straight August that the Cowboys have done that. So if you guys know who that is, awesome. If you don't, join me. Now, Stidham is going to start. This is the chives of the day for me. Okay. They asked Sean Payton who was going to be the starting quarterback, who's going to get the first team reps. And that was going to give Bronco fans at least an idea of who we could expect to be the starter week 1. But maybe that's not the case because it sounds like there's going to be a different starter every single game. Remember, Denver is one of the only teams that has a true quarterback competition going on. Although I do think Bo Nix is the favorite to win it. Sean Payton said, we'll tell you on Friday who's going to start week 1. Well, it's Friday, and Jared Stidham is going to be the person starting the preseason opener against the Colts. By the way, that game's going to be nationally televised. And then it's going to be Bo Nix and then Zach Wilson. Okay, Nix is slated to start the team's second preseason game, though, against the Packers. And that's what I mean about the shifting. So Jared Stidham, I mean, this might just be seniority. He was there with the team last year. It's his second season in the Sean Payton system. But as the quarterback battle continues, it's going to be really interesting to see if Jared Stidham outplays Bo Nix, what the Broncos do with that. Because obviously when you draft a quarterback that is at the age Bo Nix is, with the most experience of any of the quarterbacks, the expectations, I mean, it's that he's going to start. But if Jared Stidham is clearly playing better because he's just been in this system longer, do you go with the quarterback that is lesser than because you have faith that he will eventually catch on and then be better than Jared Stidham? Or do you go with a quarterback that maybe gives you like a Gardner Minshew ceiling? Or what if Jared Stidham is just now starting to figure it out? I mean, Jared Stidham had so much hype in high school and college. He was, one of those guys that was getting interviewed by, I think it was, who was it? Was it John Gruden? I mean, he was getting national exposure. And now he never panned out, but Sean always loved him. And that's why he was willing to pay him $10 million a year as a backup for Russell Wilson. So I actually think this quarterback battle is fascinating. I think I want Bo Nix to start, but I really just want the best quarterback to start. And that's why preseason is going to be fun for Bronco fans, is because we really have no idea who that is. And don't forget Zach Wilson. He brings the most experience starting like game-wise of any of these quarterbacks. So this is going to be fun. I'll be streaming the game. It's going to be amazing. Some preseason news. Anthony Richardson and most of the starters will play a series or two in Sunday's preseason game against the Broncos as well. So you're going to see Anthony Richardson in the mix going into year 2. Juju Smith, I said it earlier, released from the team. Drew Lock suffered a bad bone contusion and strained his oblique against the Lions. He is expected to miss some time, but he won't need surgery. But that could be, it for him for a long time. Because if he doesn't play anymore in the preseason, who knows if he gets in the regular season or not. I mean, Giants fans hope not. Russell Wilson, who's been opening the door for Justin Fields with a calf strain, is likely to be available for the team's preseason Week 2 matchup against the Bills. So that is also fascinating. Is Justin Fields going to have a good game? And if he does, what does that mean for Russell Wilson, especially if Russell Wilson doesn't look as good Week 2 against the Bills? But the fact that Russell Wilson's playing in the preseason is already kind of just like different. Somebody like Russell Wilson, has his own office, his own parking spot. He's not used to having to fight for his job and play in the preseason. So I'm interested to see how he's going to handle that. The Willie Roberts, defensive back, was signed by the Seattle Seahawks. And there was a couple other guys. Marcus Golden, a 9-year veteran with 51 career sacks for the Steelers, retired. I didn't even know who he was. Cordell Patterson for the Steelers passed his physical. So they get a little extra depth at the running back position. And Canu Benton suffered an eye injury in Friday's first half game versus the Texans and did not return. And Nate Meters was placed on injured reserve from waived injured per The Wire. So that is your NFL news roundup, the latest league updates from Friday, August 9th. As always, you guys can follow me on YouTube at Kyle Kitzman, and you can follow the Only Football Podcast on YouTube. Bill says, if Stidham is better, you let Knicks marinate like the Packers did with Love. Couldn't agree more. It's just like the waiting. It's been a decade. We're just like ready. I know good things come to those who wait, but we've been waiting a long time. But Bo Nix is like, that's not fair. I just got here. It's still like, come on. It's time for the roosters to hatch, or whatever the saying is. But if you guys like this video, please hit the thumbs up on it. Helps the algorithm out. And we will have Rick back on Monday streaming from his brand new house with a brand new background. And he will have an opinion on whatever happens tomorrow. Caleb Williams is getting his first start. So I texted him and I said, are you nervous? And his exact words were, fuck yes. So Rick is nervous. He is wondering if Caleb Williams is going to be that great. I don't know if he's going to get an answer tomorrow, but we will see Caleb Williams taking his first NFL snaps tomorrow. And whatever the outcome is, we will have Rick on to talk about it Monday. I will be able to talk about Bo Nix on Monday. We're in for a really good Monday episode. So definitely stick with us. We got the regular season less than a month away. And I will be week 2 in Denver for Russell Wilson, supposedly returning to Denver to play his former team. It's going to be a hell of a season. So thank you guys for deciding to watch this episode today and sticking with us for the whole thing. And I'll see you guys in the next stream.